Right, councillors, start on this Finance and Strategy Management Committee on Tuesday, the 20th of November, at Council Chambers. This meeting will be recorded and it will be uploaded to the Bill Town Council YouTube page. The aim is this decision making should be transparent and in the public domain, which will involve more of our community and local democracy. By being in the council chamber, you're consenting to be recorded and your images uploaded to the YouTube page. The images and sound shall be used for training purposes. Any views expressed by the speakers are their own and not necessarily reflected by the Bill of Town Councils. Please view guidelines on recordings of public meetings policy if you need more information. Yeah. First on the agenda, number 52, any apologies, please?
Just Councillor Holdsworth today.
Thank you. Number 3, declarations of interest, excusal of pecuniary interest or any other interests.
I've supplied some light bulbs to the town council.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins.
Some more if you want.
54.
Out today.
Further minutes of the meeting Finance Strategy Management Committee meeting held on the 26th of September 23 and approved in the Town Council on the 10th of October.
Okay.
All in favour? All in favour? Thank you.
Simon. Do everything.
Several pages. I don't move down a bit. You've got a big gap here. You want me to go down a bit? You want to stay there? Don't move down a bit. I'll move down a bit. Give you a bit more space. We're all sitting on one another's knee. Right, number 55A. Approve the bank reconciliation for August and September 23. All accounts attached. Your back. Any comments or concerns over those at all?
Right, me, Chair. What do I know?
All right, we need have a second for them for this. Pass those.
Move it. Yeah.
Favour? Yeah. (54B) receive an update on receipts and payments up to date attached. All okay with those, are you?
Move it, Chair.
Second.
Yeah.
Move second, all in favour? Yeah. 5C to receive a verbal update on the application to the Unity Bank. Everybody on this committee should have received documentation from the Unity Bank with a PIN number at this moment in time. Has everybody received that? Can we have a quick show of hands, everybody on the committee?
Who's received it?
Is it that you received it?
I've had a letter from the chair. I've had a letter, but it can't be called.
As long as it's been received anyway. An update from the chief officer, please.
Well, that's basically it. So hang on to it for now. There isn't any money in there at the moment, so you can't do very much with it. But the idea is that everybody on the Finance Strategy Management Committee should be able to view the transactions that are on Unity. And so hopefully all of our payments will go through there and you'll be able to see what's coming out of our accounts. What we need to do now that we have a Unity account, which is marvellous news and a big step towards internet banking for us, is we need to come up with a procedure and a policy and probably a change in the financial regs in terms of how we manage the relationship between NatWest and Unity. Because it's not as easy to pay into Unity as it is to pay into NatWest. So we might decide to pay some money into NatWest, transfer it over, or I'm going to do some work on that in terms of what that looks like and what balances will be in each bank account and how we'll manage that. So that will come back to you for approval in January to consider just kind of how that process works.
Yeah.
If we keep the NatWest account,
So,
does that mean we're still going to have to pay charges to?
Most of the charges that we've got at the moment are in relation to checks that we pay out. So what I'd propose to you is that our payments would come out in Unity, but because we get quite a lot of checks paid in for burials and things like that, we'll need some sort of high street presence to make that work. So it might be that actually the transactions that come in and out of NatWest are quite low, but it's still beneficial to us, but we might say, if we get £20,000 in NatWest, then we move it over. We continue to do that, or we might decide that some things come out of NatWest. We need to work it out, kind of, and do some calculations as to what we'll need to have. But that's a piece of work, things that we'll bring back to you for clarification.
thank you, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, so just for clarity then, really, we're going to use NatWest as a sort of interface to Unity, but Unity is where bulk of the funds will reside and payments will be made from. So presumably, as it with NatWest, we had to check signatories, Mayor and Sheriff Finance, so they will have a PIN number that will allow them to do that online. So, and it will mean that you haven't got to be paid by a cheque and all this stuff, which is going to make life a lot easier. It sounds absolutely ideal, so absolutely.
Yeah, so the way we've set it so far, and what we need to formalise is exactly as you've just said. So the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor and the Chair and the Deputy Chair of this committee, and then Lizzie and I will all be able to have a different level of access than you as a committee. Lizzie and I can put things on, and then the others can authorise. But it's 3 levels of authorisation, which is what we've got in our financial regs. But there'll be obviously a slightly different process of doing that now. It's not all about checkbook stubs. So
What's not to like?
Everybody okay with that? Yeah. Thank you. 55D then. Consider the auditing note attached with consideration of breaking and monitoring roles and activities. Monitoring roles and activities. If I can tag team Councillor Hawley and the Chief Officer on this one, please.
Want me to start?
Great.
So Mark's put together this note for you, basically brings together all of the different auditing and monitoring activities that go on within this town council. So I won't read that to you, but it's a breakdown of what auditing is, what my role is, what monitoring councillors do. Obviously, we have a health and safety councillor, so there's some information about that role. The role of the competent person, which is obviously the officer from the district council that we pay there. And then roles about more formal auditing, so the internal auditor and the process of external audit. And then one of the reasons for pulling this document together was the page there on monitoring councillors and the role specification. So obviously Councillor Eardley has recently been awarded the role of the second monitoring councillor. And we thought this was probably a good time to look at that role in its entirety. I don't want to speak on your behalf, but you very much felt there was a finance focus, didn't you? And that should be a broader focus.
Yeah, I think the thing that what's happened in the past, it has been largely audit focused in terms of finance and what's going on. But personally, I believe that there's a lot more to it in terms of monitoring what the council is doing rather than just finance. Sort of what are we keeping up with standing orders? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? And what's the website doing? All these sort of things. And I think really it needs to be actually defined, as I said at the last meeting about that needs to be defined. So whoever comes in to do this, because I don't sort of anticipate doing this for the rest of my life, having done it now since I think Tony Hall dropped me in it 12 years ago. And I think really to now come to the time where we need to get a plan so that somebody else comes in and basically they can sort of hit the ground running and they can see what they've got to do. what we've got here, I think, is a good start. We've got here the local council award scheme quality gold award criteria, which have been used as a basis. And I think most of this is probably the sort of things that we should be covering. But one of the things I would think is that Neil and I need to go through this and see what things we should be covering and what we can actually take out, because I don't think we need to do everything that's in this list, so that the monitoring councillor then has got a spec, so that whenever they take, whoever takes the job on, and sort of see the sort of things that they should be checking and looking for, you know, within the running of the council.
Councillor Hawley, Councillor Salton, and then Jackson, please.
I was just going to say that I completely agree with you and Neil going through the list and seeing, you know, what can come out and what can stay in. But I think that needs to come back to council to be approved.
Basically, I mean, when we come with a definite document,
Yeah,
then it has got to be approved by council.
that's great.
No, it's just a case that I think this has been put together, and I think we need to look at it and sort of say, yes, these, and obviously it goes to council. Somebody, we might throw something out and somebody will say, no, I think you ought to be doing that. Fair enough. But I think from a starting point, the existing monitoring councillors look at it and say, yes, no, whatever. So, yeah, but it will have to be approved by council. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this, but would it be helpful if councillor Eardley was a member of this finance committee as well?
That's one of the things I was sort of, yeah.
The independent group perhaps needs to sort out that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was sort of thinking of, that potentially I think the monitoring councillor does need to be a member of the finance committee.
Don't mean just in addition to.
No.
You think it's
Fair dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
The monitoring, but you're right in saying, I think the monitoring councillor should be actually a member of the finance committee.
Help. Okay. That's all right.
Well, yes, you have to make that decision. That's nothing to do with me.
Make a decision on it till later today to.
Well, you need to have your discussions about that, but I
Yeah.
absolutely think that's an appropriate way to do it. If you and Neil start with this,
Yeah.
and this is some sort of template about things you might want to do. I mean, you do 4 visits a year, don't you? So
Yeah.
divvy these up between the 4 visits in terms of what you want to look at each time, and then we'll confirm that next
So
time.
you're suggesting we have an independent council who's on finance tonight, please.
No, I'm suggesting that Neil's going to be the monitoring officer. He should be on this committee.
Therefore,
I would suggest that probably the best way of actually bringing this in as a specification from the start of next financial year, which is obviously May. And then obviously the new committee which takes on, that whoever the monitoring councillors are should be both actually on the finance committee.
It's taken, we shall work on that one then. What's taken, we'll work on that one. All right.
I might have gone by that.
Are there any other amendments people thought, anything else that needed to be added to this role specification? Anything glaringly obvious that's
Nobody
missing?
shouted out to anything. It's all there to be read. Everybody happy with everything else that's involved with the update that we've had? Move on.
Chair, as a
All in favour?
document, it's, you know, you just note it was received and accepted tonight.
Everybody's happy with it, so it's all in favour. Thanks for that. Number 56, said we're Deputy Health and Safety Monitoring Councillor. The Monitoring Councillor for Health and Safety at the moment is our Mayor, Councillor Ken Harper. If for any reason he can't do it, we've asked for an assistant to help Ken, not to take over for him, but to help Ken if needed. I've actually got a nomination for Councillor Alan Holsworth, whose background is health and safety and his previous work, full-time employment. So if there's any other nominations, if we're all in favour, put Alan Holsworth forward to help if required with the Mayor, Councillor Jackson.
I'm seconding your vote.
Seconding, are you? You're seconding that then. So all in favour, Alan Holsworth?
I just said, wouldn't, that's it, as the lead, and I'll go as this.
Oh, sorry.
I wouldn't be better taking the role
Well, we said we didn't want to take the job off you because you were keen to do the job, but if for any reason you didn't, you couldn't do it at that particular point in time.
Go for his facts, he's not better equipped than himself, because that's his background.
I'll work together to start with and see how we go.
Hey.
Yeah.
Wait,
Sort it out between you then.
yeah.
Yeah. Right, okay. So until May, which isn't that far.
Please, you can.
All right, that's.
You sort of chink a light in the door then.
We just shut it.
The auditing team have tried the same approach.
Right, moving on to 57 then. Policies. As before, the policies, you go to your first one, the co-option policy. On all the ones I'm going to in the next few, it's basically consider the red section, which is the date change and any amendments. If I can go through page by page, if you want me to, on the first page of policies. Any issues or comments on the policies on the red section? Councillor Salt.
For the co-option policy,
I haven't got that one yet. Sorry, co-option policy, sorry, yeah, somebody say it. Co-option policy, yeah.
So section 5.5, should further discussion about the suitability of an applicant be necessary, this may be referred by resolution to a confidential section of the agenda. Happy with that. At this point, the press and public will be excluded from the meeting. Happy with that. The outcome of this discussion will be reported at the open session of the meeting. Happy with that. I think further discussion in relation to Appendix A should be put in there. And the Appendix A is the desirable and essential skills for that candidate. That's what the discussion should be about in that section.
I agree with you.
That's a whole. That's all, yeah, David.
Yeah. This is more of a general point than anything else. The one thing that's in here, it's sort of got voting by council for the co-option, and it's got casual vacancy. Now, casual vacancy is where basically one of us either pops a clogs, resigns, does a bunk or whatever, and leaves. So effectively, halfway through a 4-year period, potentially a seat becomes available. Now, there's also ordinary vacancies, which is potentially what we had last time, which is where there is not sufficient candidates to fill the seats. Now, looking at other councils and the general sort of thing with this, they are dealt with on a different basis than what casual vacancies are dealt with. Now, we don't seem to make any distinction between the two in this policy. It talks about casual vacancy, but it doesn't talk about ordinary vacancies.
Yeah.
And so, we've either got to say it covers all vacancies, or we've got to put something in that covers ordinary vacancies, which is potentially what we had last time, where effectively in the case of Biddlesow, there was not sufficient candidates to actually fill the seats at an election. So that is the rest of it, fine. I mean, it's just the fact that we need to make that distinction. And I think we either sort of pull it out and say everything is basically treated the same, i.e. as a casual vacancy, or we put in something that splits the two. But it is noticeable that all of the councils seem to have ordinary and casual vacancies.
Yeah, that Councillor Hall, Councillor Chatterton.
I was under the impression that if the seat hadn't been fulfilled at an election, it then becomes a casual vacancy to be treated. I understand. I mean, to be fair, this council, I can't remember the last time where we didn't have a full slate at an election, apart from the last one. But, I certainly can't, it may have happened, but I certainly can't remember other than the last election. But I was sort of either under the impression that if it wasn't fulfilled at an election, it then became one, but that definition's wrong, I'm mistaken.
No, having looked at it, this is two separate definitions. Basically, the ordinary, which is effectively what can happen, because what's happened at an election, everybody's had a chance to actually nominate themselves or do whatever. And so what it's sort of saying, well, you don't go through that same process again. So the council can actually sort of bring somebody in and sort of say, right, we'll have him. We don't have to go through advertising the vacancy in the same way as you do with the casual vacancy. And that is the way it seems to work. Now, if you go through and find out sort of rules, that's the way it all seems to work. And that's why I'm sort of questioning, I'm not sort of disagreeing. If you want to sort of say, right, we treat every vacancy as a casual vacancy and treat it the same, then fine. But I think that's a decision that we've got to make. Because at the moment, there is the two options.
Right. Councillor Yates, I can bring you in, please. What's the really discussion? Councillor Yates, please, and I'll bring the
Yes,
chief officer.
I accept what you're saying completely, but I think everybody has read this in light of the recent experience we have, in light of making sure that we've got a policy going forward. So I don't think anybody's expecting to have that sort of there two things. But now you've said it, and the fact that casual vacancy is a specific term for during the term. I'm just wondering where, because it starts off at 1.2, it says to fill a councillor vacancy collective. And then it only mentions casual vacancy on 2.1 on the notification, and possibly a couple of points further down. Perhaps if we just cross out the word casual and just say that a vacancy may be filled by council, because you've already specifically identified that it's a councillor vacancy at 1.2. So everything which is below that just becomes, you can even put to fill a councillor vacancy brackets the vacancy, and then just refer to the vacancy from that moment on, if you know what I mean. Because I'm quite, I read this in the context of what we did last time. So I'm quite happy for this to fit for that. And obviously it does fit because it's written to go against the casual vacancy. So I would sort of propose only one policy for everybody.
Yes, that's the point I'm trying to make.
Just change 1.2 to say casual vacancy brackets the vacancy, and then just remove the word casual from every single reference to the casual vacancy, and then it's covered from that moment on.
Thank you, Councillor Yates. The chief officer would like to make a comment, please. And then
So
Councillor Salter Jones.
the way to deal with it, I think, is that you treat everybody has to go through an application process. But the only difference between an ordinary and a casual vacancy is the need to advertise that there is a vacancy. So in the notification section, it's only that section there is only relevant for a casual vacancy. If there's an ordinary vacancy, the rest of the policy is right, and we get rid of references to casual there. But there isn't the necessity, as you say, to advertise that there is a vacancy, because people have already had the opportunity to do that. So in the notification section, if we make that clear that the notification is only relevant where it's a casual vacancy, then that would fix the issue. This is ordinary and casual.
That's all clear.
Do you want me to say it again? So Councillor Hall is right. There are two different types of vacancies. There's one that would arise because somebody no longer could stay in post, perhaps 2 years into the role. And there's one that would arise, as it did in this situation, where there's a vacancy at an election time. So because the Elections Authority, which is Staffordshire Moorlands, has already advertised and offered people the opportunity to stand for election, that bit there, the notification section, where you would have to ask people if they wanted to have an election, that's already happened as part of that process. So you wouldn't need to do that if it was that there weren't enough candidates at the election, because that's already happened. If it's a part way through term, you would need to do that because people haven't been given the recent opportunity to. So it's that kind of, there's going to be an election, does anyone want to stand section that is different for both, but actually you need an application process for anybody who wants to be an applicant, I think.
Thank you for that. We'll do a few tweaks in a minute. We'll go a few speakers and then Councillor Salt, Jones and
I don't know if we need to have a vote on or agree, but just the comments I made on section 5.5, don't know if you want to go back to those, Chair. I think any discussion that we should have on the candidate should be in relation to Appendix A. I just want to know if you're approving that.
Councillor Patterson. Your thoughts, Chief Officer, before we move on?
I think that's perfectly reasonable, because you
Okay.
should only be thinking about somebody's skills and attributes and whether or not they could work.
Happy to do that then.
Really do that.
No, not the last time, no.
Well, we hardly go through this process, do we? So it needs to make sure that next time we do, we're absolutely as ready.
We're voting on that, I don't, I suppose, let's have a vote on it, Chair. I think Jill's proposed it, somebody, I think Kevin seconded it, let's vote on it, I'm quite happy with that.
Thank you. And just a quick one, councillor Lawton, then we'll go to a vote.
Rather fine point this, the chief officer related to having the distinction in the advertising. If therefore our policy would be that an unfulfilled seat didn't need to be advertised, unfulfilled seat of the election didn't need to be advertised. Is there a time limit on that? Because if, for example, you left it 12 months before 30, wouldn't the argument be a case for advertising? Well, that's why I asked. But
Thank you, councillor. Yeah.
I need to be absolutely sure, but I'm pretty sure it's 3 months.
Right.
And that's why we moved quite quickly with it after the elections in May.
Right. So we're all in favour of the slight tweak?
So if I just fix the notification section to be clearer about ordinary and casual.
Can,
Yeah, councillor Wally.
basically on this appendix A, the table suggests the desired goals for candidates at the casual vacancy. I mean, what we're saying is that should be any vacancy. Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's,
Sorry.
I mean, the other funny thing is that we've got all these personal attributes and things like that for a casual vacancy, but when it comes down to it, you don't have to have any of that lot to stand in the election in the first place.
People are judging you on, so
Yeah.
out there, and you've got these things, people should know that.
Are we happy with that slight amendment? All in favour?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Chair, Jill's amendment.
Oh, voting on Jill's amendment,
Well, what you suggested then that you should read.
So just to be clear in the initial section about ordinary and casual vacancies, is that, and then Jill's amendment as well?
Yeah.
Is that what you're voting on?
I don't want to vote on both of them together, I wanted to speak on what you said.
That's mentioned to councillor Jones a minute ago. Yeah, go on, councillor Jones, yeah.
Well, I mean, we're jumping about a bit here, we're going to vote on Jill's amendment, let's do that, and then I'll talk about what Sarah said.
I thought you wanted, okay, I thought you wanted to speak before we vote, sorry. All in favour of councillor Salt's amendment then? Good. But you want to speak as well, Joe?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak, I understand what you're saying about advertising and not advertising, but if it's I can't remember if she's which now, but the one that doesn't need to be advertised, you're saying, well, how in that case do we recruit somebody? We got to just, so I look for somebody in the pub and say, councillor been on the council. We're going to have to advertise it anyway, aren't we? So I don't really see what the distinction is. I don't really need, we need two policies, quite frankly.
It's a different stage of the advertising. So it's that note that we put up that says a casual vacancy has arisen.
I know, but do we really need
You
two
want to
policies?
call an election. It's
Yeah.
that advertising.
Oh, I see what you mean. So
And then
we'll say,
if people write to the
Yes.
council and say, yes, we want to call an election, that's a different
That's when
process
it comes
again.
in.
But if
I've
it's
got you.
that bit, it's the advertising
Understand.
bit, then, but of course, if we get to the point where the districts have said there's no need for an election, then we can say, right, anybody who wants to do it, here's your application form, I'll go through that.
in that case, I fully support what the office said.
Thank you, councillor Salt and then Yates. You put your hand up a second ago. You're all right, yeah? Councillor Yates.
There's a couple of smudgy printouts on appendix B, which is on Chris's and on mine, so I presume it's on all of us, so they're going to use, not been using reason, parish areas
Yeah,
compressed.
it's not like that.
So we're happy now, are we, with that? What's going on?
Yeah,
Did you have a proposal or a second?
we need to vote on that separately.
I think
On the second one,
on
we've got a
the
proposal on the second.
clarification as regards the notification section.
Aye. Favour.
I'll second it.
Proposed and seconded, all in favour? Thank you. Sorry, got a bit, hold up that one little tiny bit.
My apologies for being thick, Chair.
All right, no worries. Right, moving on then. 57B. Approve the petitions
Oh,
policy. Okay,
That's lovely.
okay.
What Nigel said, it is on the electronic copy. Is the smudgy bits, like the words compressed. Brain, I think it went. Okay.
Start off a bit, Joe, good. I don't think drones, for some people. Yeah, why not? Drones a bit, don't it, in the room?
I think it's just says parish community, but not parish.
So just knock the fan off a bit, because it drones a bit, don't it, when the fans are on?
You get cold though, let's.
If you start shivering, let us know, we're going back on.
That's your room, I'm off, mate, I'll tell you.
I think that's more of a pleasant room, isn't it, now, for noise? Right, 57B, petitions policy. You're there again? Everything that's in the red, but on this particular one, on 4.1, section about 18. Should we leave that in or take it out that you got to the minimum of 18, Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, I'm really pleased to see this because it gives younger people an opportunity to actually start a petition if there's something burning that comes up at school or whatever that's related to the town. I think it's important to give young people that voice.
Yes, Councillor.
I agree with Kev. If we've got, whether it be a school group or a youth club, and say, for example, they want a skateboarding park, if they aren't 18, under the written one there, they'd be debarred from putting the petition. So removing that makes common sense. This is everybody.
Okay, so we have to take any age, basically.
I think the question I was just wanting some clarity on there is, do you want to know that they are under 18 in terms of how you process their information?
Yes.
No, if you don't, it doesn't matter to me either way, but.
All right, Councillor Jones.
The only thing I would say is I'd like to see if we can find some way of confirming that they are electors within the parish. We had a petition famously in the last couple of years where people in New York were voting on it. So,
On the petition though, John, you have to put the address and the postcode, so.
well, it depends on the petition. That one was an online petition and it was proven that there were people voting that didn't even live in this country. So I think we need to have some mechanism to make sure that they are electors within the parish. Well, not electors within the parish, but residents in the parish.
Understand that, Councillor Smith, then so.
Just with that in mind, with young people potentially, just how we're storing that information and things, because obviously if they are under, can't we consent for us to store their information?
That's the point really, so it's fine. We need to make sure we manage.
Wary about how we manage it.
Yeah. Councillor Salt.
Yeah, just to come back on Councillor Jones's point, it says in 4.1 part 3, please note sample checks will be carried out to authenticate the address of petitioners, so that'll sort out your concern there. That's already in.
As long as it's, so if I may, through the chair, as long as we're considering it and we're making sure that we weed them out, I'm quite happy with that. But I think that just needs spelling out.
Also to come back on 4.1, yeah, remove the age. I don't think we need to know the age.
No.
I don't think we need to know. And even if we did know the age and we knew that people were under 18, that means that they're not a registered elector because they're not old enough to vote. So they won't be in a registered elector anyway, if they're not old enough to vote. But that doesn't mean, I suppose, that we shouldn't hear their voice if they live within the town, which is covered by section 4.13. Then as long as they live within the town, hearing their voice, whether they're under 18 or not, is not a problem. So if we remove that section, that alleviates your concern about we're not actually collecting that data. So I think get rid of it. That would be my proposal.
It's proposed and seconded.
Hang on, which bit?
Section 4.1,
4.1.
part 5, no, part 4. It's already in deleted, so I'm quite happy with getting rid of that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Harp and then Jackson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was listening to everyone. I was thinking, back when I was a young man, I didn't have much money. So these youngsters may well do a petition, etc. They might need some financial help somewhere along the line. Is there anywhere that we can assist? Or not?
That's another kind of worms, isn't it? Take that one, yeah. The listener.
You brought it up, so I'm throwing that one back at you.
I would imagine that's difficult because what you're doing is putting a bias on. If we're giving people money to organise a petition, looks like you're supporting the petition. I would suggest Ken, I don't know the legalities, but I'll be honest, but common sense would say no, because if it's a petition, it can't be sponsored really by the town hall, because we don't know which way the town hall wants to go on the petition.
We've sponsored this petition, I would
Oh, yeah.
vote that.
No, through the chair, you could have a situation where a bit of printed material might be needed.
Mm.
You know, and that sort of thing. It's needn't be hard cash assistance.
If I may, I
Otherwise,
think-
you're not discriminating against the black
No,
family.
not at all. I think most of these websites and things that you can use to create petitions are free anyway.
Yeah, they are.
All are. So actually, there isn't, you can have a quite successful petition online and never have the need to have a printed version of anything.
No, don't
Thank you.
argue that.
Moving on slightly, councillor Jones.
Assuming we're going to accept this policy, could I ask that we pass the changes in our policy to either the young people's group that we meet with, or with you meet with the heads of the schools, pass that information on to the schools so it disseminates down to the young people. Very good. That's an proposal, Gary, now.
Have a think.
To actively encourage them.
No, just let them know there's a change, that if young people, because young people perhaps didn't know the right to have to start a petition and the town council would engage with it, that this is a bit of a change
Yeah.
for young people, so that change needs passing down to them. I mean, you know, just mention it to them in a meeting, not saying go make
Yeah.
it solid, that's fine.
We are hosting, we're hosting the school learners forum, which we do every term here. So we can reiterate the ways that young people can engage with the town council through that. I wonder whether we should have a page on the website, if you're under 18, how you engage with us or something like that.
That's a good idea.
By the world, isn't it? It's websites nowadays.
Good.
Councillor Jones wants to speak anyway.
Oh,
Dan Smith.
I can't believe some of the stuff I've just been hearing, quite frankly. If kids want to do a petition, they'll do a petition. They won't need paper. They'll do it on paper. They'll do it online. And to be honest, whatever we say this policy, I mean, we had a petition and Bill from a few years back for the playground. If kids want to do a petition, they'll do a petition, no matter what it says in our policy. And I think we're trying to tick a few boxes here by saying, well, let's approach the schools, let's do this, that, and the other. If they want to do a petition, they'll do one.
The point is, we've changed our policy to encourage young people. And we've changed the policy, so we should let people know that policy has changed.
With respect, through the chair, whether we've changed our policy or not, doesn't make a scrap of difference to them. If they want to do a petition, they will do one.
Irrespective of.
Our policy before was we'd ignore it.
But we wouldn't have done.
Well, our policy says we couldn't accept it because we couldn't accept it from people under 18. That's changed now. So surely it makes sense to let people know. Sorry for.
Yeah, go on rather quickly on that, and we'll move on.
No, that's it. I'm just
All right, thank you. Councillor
for bouncing backwards and forwards.
Smith, sorry.
Just so that we're clear, I've just had a look at the GDPR guidance, and a child can consent to you having their information if they're over the age of 13. If they're under the age of 13, the person with parental responsibility has to give their consent for it. So if we're holding any personal details, any data, we're going to hold that. They can only give their consent to it if they're over the age of 13. Otherwise, it has to come from the person with parental responsibility. So that might throw a bit of a spanner in the works.
Thoughts, Chief?
I think it's just an additional sentence that says just that.
If we destroy the.
If you're under 13, we won't hold your information.
Yeah.
We'll essentially hold it as a number in terms of the number of people who voted for something, but we'll delete your information. So like 20 people voted, 18 of them were over 13. We keep those 18 details. We remove the 2 details of the 2.
That's for their age.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Over.
Oh, sorry.
I think, if I may.
Okay.
If if I am over 13 if you're under 13, you need parental consent.
Yeah, so if we had a GDPR statement in there,
Yeah.
Right, so add that to it.
yeah.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't want to labour this because I can feel another 10 o'clock finish coming on.
Yeah.
But we just said we aren't bothered about how old they are. So if we don't bother how old they are, how are we going to know how old they are? So, but I think Councillor Smith's probably just answered that question by saying they just have to declare that they are under or over 13, don't they? We don't need to know how old they are, but we just know that they've passed that threshold. So Charlie should have probably covered what I was asking.
Okay, councillor Sol.
Still think, I completely agree with what's been said, but remember, we're not making the petition. So when that petition comes to us, that relies on the petition maker to make sure that everybody can sign their petition is over the age of 13. So who is data controller in that sense? Is it the person that made the petition in the first place, and therefore are they liable for GDPR? Or is it the person that the petition goes to, which is us? And I think I could potentially argue that the data controller, because the information has been given to the petition maker, not to the council.
It's got to be, hasn't it?
Yeah, so I wonder if we're just going round a bit in circles here. It's up to the person that makes the petition to make sure that the information they gather is not from people under the age of 13. We're just receiving the petition, aren't we? Because we can destroy that petition within 24 hours after discussion, and it will no longer exist anymore for the town council. We're not the data controller. The data controller is the person that's gathered the data and set up the petition in the first place.
I think Councillor Jones was quite quickly, then Councillor Orton, then we're going to move.
Yeah, then. So in that case, we reinstate 414, and it says, you need to say confirmation that those signing the petition are over 13 years of age. Leave it in.
All right, councillor Orton.
13, not 18.
13, okay.
Blimey, that took a lot of getting to.
Councillor Orton.
Well, to get a very fine point of detail this, and it looks like one that, in view of Lisa's comment, we needn't worry about, because it's a data control issue. But when one speaks of someone being a certain age in relation to a petition, at what date is that age achieved? What is the date of a petition? When people come to vote, is it their birthday on? Or
I think it's when they sign it.
I think we said,
Yeah.
let's try and wrap it up a little tiny bit. Are we going to change the 18 to 13?
Yeah.
That's the easiest solution.
Easiest way back, I think.
Yes, I think so, and I think we should put a brief GDPR statement in to warn petition makers of their responsibility.
Yeah.
So we're changing 18 to 13, GDPR statement, all in favour? Thank you.
And then promote the change in policy so that 13 is understood by the headmasters, headmistresses.
No, we're having a page on the website. How you engage with your contact.
Okay. Yeah. Moving on. Through the revised severe winter weather management policy. I don't think this one will be quite so controversial.
I don't know.
Events again, the alterations, the dates.
Excellent, yeah.
Most of it, other than that, is very much since last year. Everybody, any comments or criticisms over that one at all?
Move it.
Maybe seconded.
Yeah, move it. Yeah.
There you go. Thank you.
Put you on the field when we did that.
No, I was voting.
Right, moving on. The investment strategy. Any thoughts, comments?
Move it.
That one at all?
Seconded.
Yeah.
Just the alterations and the corrects for the events, for the dates. Other than that, all in favour? Thank you. Loan working policy. And again, the dates. Very much the same other than that, I think.
Yeah, move it, yeah.
Seconded, all in favour? Yeah. Right. And. That's it.
Fine. Yeah.
What late did we know to this for that project?
It's a long way to go.
Standing agenda items 58.
Way to go.
To consider disposal of any assets in line with asset management policy and financial regulations. I don't think we've got any at this point in time, have we, Chief Officer?
Fine.
At this time, nothing to dispose of. 58B. Pass one of these round and then take one, pass it on. Yeah, okay. Approved suppliers as part of the procurement policy. Coming round to it at the moment.
So there's only two to advise you of this time. So obviously we have a procurement policy, which includes an approved providers section within that. The top one on there is the organisation that we've been using for the past couple of years to service the 3 clocks within the town. So they have completed all the paperwork in line with the approved suppliers policy. And the bottom one we brought to you previously, and there were some discussions about insurance, and I can provide you with the reassurance that that level of insurance has now been increased.
Okay, Councillor Jackson.
Just to say, I'm so glad you put clockmaking and brackets underneath that.
Apology.
That's what I thought it was, feeling bumps on your head or something.
No, love you. Is everybody okay with these?
Confirm that you're happy for those, yes.
Confirm that you're happy. All in favour?
Move it, Chair.
Yep. Right. On to the confidential section. Yeah, I do, yes, I do. Moving on to the confidential section at this point in. Sorry, people who are watching us on YouTube, thank you for participation, but we now lose you and we go into confidential sections. Thank you.